All right, y'all. Yeah, it's just pouring out of me right now. So I'm going to just go with it. I have the space and the time to share. I wanted to have one video here, a concrete video of this entire experience from the good, the bad, the ugly to the horrible. And the unfortunate, really, of how it's all unfolding continually. So, um, if you watched my last live video, actually, it's going to be released later. So I kind of wanted this one before, but I just had to get some stuff off my heart about what's being asked of the current teammates that used to be my teammates and what I considered my family. Immediately, I loved these people as my family, and that wasn't like cultish. That was real for me. That was absolutely real for me. If you didn't watch that, probably not yet. Just so you know, I came out of a very abusive, toxic environment in my 30s. And when I say that, I don't say that it was his or her or that system's problem. It was what was in me. Because there is a little bit of needing to be played the victim. But if you stay in that victimhood, then you never become a thriver. You only become a survivor. And I'm all about becoming a thriver. And in part of doing that process of becoming a survivor to thriver, it's important for people to be able to share their stories, their experiences as they happen to them, as they saw them happen to themselves. And a person's story is not meant to be argued with. It is not meant to be demeaned. It is not meant to be pointed out for facts. It is their story and their experience of what happened to them. And they need to be able to share that openly and honestly and be able to practice using their voice. Because when you're in a toxic relationship, and again, it takes two or more, it's not just them. There's something in you that's attracting that toxicity to wake you up, hopefully, to become healthy. There's something within the person that we would typically call the abused that needs, sorry, let me back up. The abuser, what we typically call the abuser, is really good at stifling the voice of what we would typically call the abused. I flip all of that on the head because I can tell you by the end of my marriage, you would not have been able to tell who was the abused and who was the abuser. I got just as good at using those tactics because that's what was demonstrated for me. And that's the psychology of what happens in those type of relationships. You just think you start to, I use this analogy all the time with people so they can understand it. It's the difference between putting a frog in a boiling pot of water. Immediately they know it's boiling and they're going to jump out. But if you start to turn up the heat on a cool pot of water, slowly, they're not going to ever know that they're boiling to death and they're never going to jump out. And this is the process of domestic violence. This is why it frustrates me beyond all belief when people are attacking domestic violence and domestic abuse because they don't understand how long it's really been going on, or those stories about like, oh, why did she stay until she was, she's being hit? Why is she staying? Well, there's so much psychological warfare and mind games going on that get somebody to accept that type of abuse way before they're actually being hit or anything gets physical. And there's a lot of physical stuff of abuse that's happening that people don't even realize it's physical, like, taking someone's keys, locking them in a room. I had my ex pour like oils on my head and do it as a joke, and like, okay, you just take a joke, and I'm not going to go into the story, but ripped up my books when I was trying to read and not paying attention to him. There's a lot of stuff that's deemed physical abuse that we don't see as physical abuse until it hits your body, and that's at that point it's usually too late because there's been so much emotional, energetic, psychological, financial, social abuse that happens. And I'm going way off on this. So I come into this experience with that background and had really, where do I start? I need to share my story from start to finish. I need to be able to share my story and my experience as part of my healing process. And I'm doing it live because I feel like, I know based on all of the hours, almost like probably when you put it together, years of time that I've spent in healing from an abusive, toxic childhood and past and understanding my part in it. That what is part of the dynamic is to keep it hidden, to keep it under wraps so that it doesn't get addressed and integrated and dealt with. And that's never been my approach from the moment I knew this was happening. I've been verbal. I wrote a blog about my experience of my marriage, and coming out of that, coming out of the Christian church and my experience with that. I've just been one of those people where I'm not going to help collude with other people to keep this under wraps. And if anything I share helps anybody else, whether it's because they've been part of WFG and see something happening there that they're questioning, you're finding my video, or part of some other MLM, that's why I'm doing this, is just to be a voice of reason, a reality check, which is a valid psychological tool to use. People that don't like you getting a reality check because they don't want you to find out what's really going on, they try to tell you that you can't, it's gossiping. It's not gossiping. It is a psychological therapeutic tool to get a reality check. So let this be a reality check for you. Let me start by saying it is not my intention to badmouth the people that I believed were my family and that had my best interest at heart until I realized they didn't. When the veil came down, it's not my interest to take them down, to whatever people are going to put on me, they're going to put on me. My interest is to heal myself, to practice using my voice so that it can be one of light, and to call these people into the light so that they can heal themselves from these actions. Because I believe that truly what they want to do, and I'm pausing there because I'm like, do I? I did believe that they truly wanted to help the middle America with their finances. I want to truly believe that, and I'm not sure I do anymore, to be honest. And part of me coming forward more and more and more has shown that that's not really the case. The case is being that they have wanted to protect their backs and not own up to what is going on, what I've discovered and what I have had evidence to prove now 3 times to an insurance company towards Nationwide in order to actually get refunds. And I believe all of this stems from the misappropriation of the goals of the RFM, of WFG, of MLMs, where the focus is on so heavily on training people to recruit and not training people to actually do the financial job that they signed up to do, not training them in the financial education. Yeah, again, I feel like there's so much I can say, but this is my story. This is what I've experienced. This is what I know is true for me. And so, yeah, I'm going to continue to hold my coffee because it's nice and warm and comforting because, yeah, it's nerve-wracking knowing that I'm already getting hate speech and cancel culture speech from one of the former teammates on my team who has attacked my virtue and my character, and tried to put lies out there about me and my success and who I am as a person. And that's unfortunate. That really is unfortunate. So, yeah. So I am not here to badmouth those people. I'm here to share my experience and hopefully bring light to the situation and hopefully healing for everybody. That people would wake up to, this doesn't need to be done. Like, this could be still such a successful business without the tactics that are being used. And that's what blows my mind, is like, I saw instantly how amazing this business structure could be. And yeah, let me jump into my story. So I have been working hard for 10 years to get myself, actually 13 years, right, to get myself healthy from this past that I just mentioned, but also because I knew I needed to teach in some way, shape, and form, or be a coach in some way, shape, or form. And I'm one of those type that I just kind of rush in and try something and then it's not working. And so I back up and I'm like, go back to the drawing board. And so I've been doing that on top of being a single mom in the San Francisco Bay Area, where a lot of my energy, time, and money was having to be a single mom and surviving. And so I didn't always get the energy and time to devote to my business. And so oftentimes had to put that in the back burner until I got here to Nashville. And then I had the opportunity to really dive in. And God, I'm just thinking, oh, they're probably going to use that story of why I'm in Nashville without my kids. I'll just tell you real honestly. And that's a whole nother story of how that unfolded. But yes, I'm here without my kids. And it was part of my opportunity to rebuild myself as I headed into my 40s so that when I got to my 50s, I wasn't a burden to my kids, to myself, that I had something to speak for myself, because I feel like that's important for my kids to see as well. And my kids are well taken care of. Their father is definitely has enough to take care of them, and he's doing a great job from what I can tell. And they're excelling in every way, shape, and form that a parent would hope that they are excelling. So, yeah, that's a whole different story. The story, though, was about me rebuilding my life after being really a stay-at-home parent and focused on my kids for 13 years. And so I started to build my business here, was just getting my feet under me, was starting to do some in-person stuff, or a lot of in-person stuff, when COVID hit. And it gave me some time to really evaluate and just feel, because I teach about feeling into the body, and realize like something's not right here. Something's not in congruence. I still don't really know what movement medicine is all about. I don't know how it's going to move forward from here. And so I gave it up again. It wasn't hard to do because not much was happening. And because most of what I was doing was in person, and we couldn't do that during COVID, and the online stuff, like trying to host on Zoom, body-based classes just wasn't really working. So I gave it all up, took a few months off. Actually didn't really take a few months off. I actually dove into my creativity and started to design a 3-book series and a prequel that I will be writing in future years after I get myself financially stable and a business financially stable, that will help explain some more of these concepts around death and life, and why our culture is embedded in the way we are with COVID, even like exemplifying that. I mean, these books are going to be amazing. I don't know how they're going to come together. They're going to be fiction, but they're slowly based off of my life and what I've experienced in the last 10 years in my awakening process and my healing journey. And so I did that. And then come into May, June, I actually had somebody try to recruit me, and I was like, oh, this is nice. And it just got me thinking like, okay, I have a business degree. I'm a smart cookie. I can put in a couple years in a business just to get myself financially stable in order to build a fund that would help movement medicine, my business, start to take off in whatever direction it was going to take off. Because I knew I didn't want to, even though I'd let it go, it'd come back to me again. And I knew that it would continue to do something. And so that was my goal as I stepped into May and June of 2020. Started doing, I had, because I was on unemployment, I was applying for jobs every week. I was really interested in going to Dave Ramsey's company, actually, because I had a tenant at that point during COVID. And she was looking at Dave Ramsey company, but she didn't even know how to do a budget. And so I was actually educating her on how to do a budget. And I loved the process. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I would love to take my coaching background and combine it with my finance love of numbers, because that was really my first love. I wanted to be an accountant for most of my high school years, and then also early college. And I love numbers. I love working with numbers. And I just thought that would be such a great fit for me, but wasn't getting anywhere with Dave Ramsey. And instead I was getting recruited by a lot of life insurance companies. And it was great. They saw my potential, but then I would go into the interviews, and it was more like a timeshare presentation. I was like, But something in me kept saying, investigate, investigate, investigate. Don't say no, just keep investigating. So I did. And it led me to having a conversation with my aunt, who was like, I think I know somebody that's in the industry. Would you like to have a conversation with her? Maybe she can help you verify. So I was put in touch with my future upline. At the point, I thought, though, it was just going to be a conversation about the industry, about the insurance industry. I didn't have any clue that I was going to be recruited and invited into a team structure with her. And so that's exactly what happened, though, is I said yes to getting on a Zoom call with her, really not knowing what I was doing. I just, again, thought I was going to have a Zoom call with her. And she ended up showing me this beautiful presentation. And within the first 10 minutes, like, she's showing me all these different things that this company called Revolution Financial Management, which is tied to Transamerica, which I knew a little bit about because I lived in San Francisco for 20 years, knew the big Transamerica building downtown, the Pyramid building, but also because my ex was involved in the big firms in the financial industry. So I had a background in that as well. And when I saw everything that Revolution Financial Management did, helped with the planning, helped with people getting into budgets and getting out of debt and doing this and doing that, like, the estate planning, I just got the chills. I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is what I want to do. Exactly what I want to do. I could see how I could combine my finance, my love of finance and numbers with my love of coaching and emotional intelligence. And this was it. So I was captive. I was sold right away. And then we get to the second page and we start going into the business opportunity. And that's where my heart started to flounder. I was like, oh no. I honestly, even though I'd been part of Creative Memories, Mary Kay, and even Nikon, I think, I had never seen a business opportunity presentation. I'd never been asked to sit down and hear a presentation. Like, I always pursued those options, mainly because I use the makeup, I use the product, and I use the product. And so I just did it. And I never plugged into all the team meetings. So I didn't know, I think I went to like 2 or 3 Mary Kay meetings. So I really didn't know, but I knew enough that this looked like an MLM. And of course, at that time, I still had a negative impression of MLMs. So we go through the rest of the presentation. And then I said, well, I don't know. I need to slow down. I didn't anticipate getting sold on coming on to a new team. Like, I was asking questions about these other things that were local to me that I could go in person to. And she's like, oh yeah, sure. Take your time. Like, let me know when we can get back on together. And so we got back on together a matter of like 3 or 4 more times, where I probably spent at least an hour of her time asking questions, really detailed questions, because I don't just believe the interview is for the people interviewing you, but also for you to interview them. And at the time, I thought that's what's happening. Now I understand, like, they can't hire you because it's a 1099 form, but that's what I thought was happening. And so I was asking questions about, like, well, how many salespeople are actually, able to make it here? What's your percentage? What's this? Like, things that I look back now, and my upline probably was clueless on how to answer these questions, but somehow I was convinced that she was answering them legitimately. And so I did my, and in the process, she started taking what's called a financial needs analysis so she could help me with my finances, because I knew, again, having the background that I did, that I wasn't doing anything for my future. I mean, I had a substantial amount that, isn't really that substantial, but compared to most people my age, in my situation, I had a substantial amount in an IRA that had lost a lot because of COVID and wasn't coming back. I had some other investments, some savings, but I didn't have a steady income. And so this whole thing began to balloon because I just got more and more interested. She invited me to see, Jumpstart with so-and-so, who was the head of Team Revolution, even though I hadn't said yes yet, and, got more financial education that I wanted. And so I just got involved in the team a little bit before I even got involved with the team. And I kept checking in with myself, because I have a high degree for need to be an integrity with myself and with those people that I work with. And everything in me said yes. Everything in me said yes to this company. So I said yes. And I was still very like, I'm not sure. And even like the first couple times that we develop on the team, I'm jumping ahead, but they encourage you to develop like a 2-minute story that you can share during your first presentation when you're taking a warm market potential client into the business model and getting them to see the beautiful things that we do on our team. And so I remember saying, like, I was really skeptical. I kind of joined with like, show me the money, basically. Show me that this is integral, right? Because I'd had just a negative impression of the financial industry. And even though everything in me was saying yes, I still was very hesitant. So I joined, I started studying immediately for my license test, and I geeked out about it. I'm a real geek when it comes to this kind of stuff. Like I was reading everything, understanding it, loving it. I was like, oh my God, this insurance world, this life insurance world is so different than what I ever learned about finances in college and post-college, where, I really feel like the stock market is more about, especially the people that run some of those. I mean, there's a lot of people that are integrity now that I'm finding them, and that's beautiful. But there's a lot of people that are using the stock market and their jobs in the stock market to pocket their pocketbooks, and we know that, right? Where the life insurance companies, yeah, they're doing that, of course, because they're a company and they're not out to not make money, because making money actually makes you all money as well. But it felt like it was a more communal project, which really fit with my hippy dippy side. Like, this is something I could get behind. So I started falling in love with the insurance industry, and I was doing everything my upline asked me to do, but also with a lot of hesitancy. I was like, okay, I'm not agreeing with everything I'm being asked to do, but let me try this out. I had enough wherewithal to be like, I can try this out and see how it works. And then I knew just enough at the beginning that I wanted to probably eventually, not right away, but eventually build my own team so I could be my own SMD, which is, if you don't know, WFG, SMD is Senior Marketing Director. That's where you're given basically your agency license, and you have, pretty much carte blanche control over your team and what happens on your team. And so I started to have that eyesight towards it. And I was just making notes of all the stuff I didn't like or didn't resonate with. I was literally making Excel spreadsheets after Excel spreadsheets, because I really saw that it was pretty confusing when you come onto the team, and that could be cleaned up a lot if there was just some checklists that were given to people, so that they knew kind of the order of how things were going to happen. Now in hindsight, I think there's a lot of reason people are brought on the way they are brought on. So it kind of keeps you in this dazed and confused and like needing your uplines for that process, and having to trust them without verifying them. It forces you into that position, and I had to trust, because I couldn't really understand what was going on, because I couldn't see the big picture. I was a big picture person, so I was making notes so that I could change that for my team. And even like, because I've been told about the process beforehand, I had started making a list of, my first couple of people that I knew I'd want to bring to my upline in order to do the training. And I purely thought this was for training. So that is how I pitched it to my friends is, hey, I've joined this new company. It's a lot of education I'm going to need. I need you to come on, ask really strong, poignant questions, really challenging questions, because that's going to help train me. And that's all this is for. Like, if you're interested in the stuff, great, but that's not what that's for. It's really about helping me get trained. So that's how I pitched it and trained my warm market to come onto the conversation with me and my upline. And I think that really worked. It really helped. I'd have a lot of my warm market, I would have maybe an hour, 2 hour, 3 hour conversations over a course of a couple different phone calls or Zooms. My internet connection is unstable. So okay, we're back on. An internet was unstable for a second. Yeah, I believe so strongly that what I had to offer was right on, and that my friends, especially my friends like me, who've kind of been living by a hope and a prayer these last years of our lives, especially single moms, people in the hippy dippy world, like they needed this education and they needed this hope. So I believed strongly in the mission. And as I saw myself having success through my upline, a lot of the times, and I'm going to even backtrack and say, I think I had success through my upline, not necessarily through my upline, but because I was doing that preparatory work before people would get on with my upline. And even some of my friends came to me and they said, we really love you. We really want to invest in what you're saying. We really want to know more about it, but we will wait till you get licensed because we're not resonating with her. It just felt like a lot of sales pitch, a lot of recruiting pitch. And that was some of the feedback I got. So I said, okay, wait till I'm licensed. I will know as much as I can possibly know, and we'll go from there. And so, yeah, I had a lot of what people would say was early success. I had a team. So that's a whole nother thing, is like, I remember telling my upline, I have no interest in building a team. Like I still was really confused about all that. And that's actually part of what they encourage you to do. They encourage you to stay confused, stumble forward, stay confused, stumble forward. Like that's their saying on the team. And there's again, nothing they're saying is incorrect, really, because when you join a new company, like even a corporate America company, you're going to be overwhelmed. You're not going to know everything about the culture and how the company works and how about your job unfolds. And I actually use that with my new teammates in order to encourage them just to continue stumbling forward and staying confused. So I apologize. Like there's a little bit of truth in that, right? There's actually a lot of truth in that, but where it gets 0.01% off that becomes manipulative is when people ask direct questions and they're not given direct answers. And that's what I have an issue with. So I was stumbling forward, staying confused, but I had told my upline, I do not want to build a team. I want to know what I'm doing first and foremost, because this is like, again, I was married to somebody that went through compliance stuff several times. I knew how serious this world was. I knew you had to get licensed, and I didn't want to put myself or anybody else in financial harm way because I didn't know what I was doing. Unfortunately or fortunately or whatever, one of my first friends that I brought on board was sitting in the presentation. He was actually sitting here with me and was following what my upline was doing and got to the business opportunity. And all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I want to join. And I know he joined a lot because he just believed in me and he saw what I had to offer the world and wanted to support me. And all of a sudden, I now had a team that I didn't want to have, but it was exciting at the same time because I saw the vision. I saw the big vision of how exciting this could be, that I could work the rest of my life with my friends that I love, maybe even my family that I love, and build something of a legacy with them that could change the world. I bought into it hook, line, and sinker. And I at this point was starting to see how I could change the presentation to fit myself and my community. And I just had the wits all that I'm not going to repeat verbatim how the presentation is done because I'm going to curtail it to fit the people that I know are coming in. And so I got excited. And all of a sudden I had 3 people on my team and I got my first promotion and it was so exciting. And I think at this time I was also telling my upline, like, okay, let's do this. Like, all of a sudden, I kind of went from here, being a little skeptical, to seeing results. So I went to this. And the system is all designed for that, y'all. It's all designed for that. They push for that. And again, there's nothing wrong inherently with that until you bring in that there is an agenda behind that to serve the uplines and to serve them dramatically in their pocketbooks. And also to stoke their ego, right? Like, look at the success I got for my downline. Right. And there's so much I could say about that. Well, again, I don't want to give all the credit to my upline that she got that success. A lot of it was because people believed in me. I did the work ahead of time. I knew how to prep the people that were coming in. And I knew how to dance that is required in sales, which is all of life. All of life is about sales. All of life is about relationships. And relationships really are nothing more than selling yourself and what you have to another person and negotiating what they're selling to you and what they have. And that's what a relationship is. That's all sales is to me. And so I was able to do a lot of that work prior to them ever meeting my upline. And in fact, I got turned off onto my own, not turned off, but I got turned out on my own really early on. Like it was my passion and my drive and my go-getterness to get certified. So we have 2 presentations on our team. The first one is just like kind of welcome to Revolution Financial Management. Here's who we are. Here's our business structure. Invite. We always put that first, which I asked my upline, like, why are we always putting the business presentation first over what we're telling them that this is going to be about? And actually that just, oh my gosh, I just remembered that. So another thing I wasn't comfortable with is like, I was encouraged by my upline just to tell people, oh, it's just going to be a 15 or 20 minute Zoom presentation. And so I told the first couple people that, and all of a sudden it was like a 45 minute to an hour. And I'm huge in not disrespecting people's time because it's not only about disrespecting people's time, but that shows immediately this undercurrent, subtlety, subliminal message that I'm more important than your time is, than you are, and I'm going to take more of your time to show that. And so immediately I told my upline I was not comfortable with that. I shifted my language and I said, let us know. I will really honor your time, but it's probably going to be 30 to 45 minutes. And I still got people to say yes. And so my upline used that and changed her own verbiage and encouraged other people on the team to change their own verbiage so that we were bringing in more integrity. Just remember that one. So going back to the story, I asked my upline, why do we always pitch the business opportunity before we actually share with them what we're on to share with them, which was the education, the financial education? And she's like, well, we're always going to aim high, fall, and then, I forget exactly which, but we always aim high. So if we don't get it, at least we get them as a client. We're always aiming to get them as an agent, because if they become an agent, automatically they become a client, because that's just the process that's built into the business system. And if we don't get that, at least we'll get them as a client. And I was like, okay, mental notes. I'll do it how you want me to do it for the most part. She didn't see me. She didn't see me when I was on my own doing my own presentations. Even though I got certified to do it the way she wanted me to do it, I changed that on my own because I wasn't comfortable. It wasn't in integrity and it wasn't honest to me. So I would only go into that business opportunity if people really wanted it. And even if they didn't want it, I still showed them the cash flow quadrant because that was beneficial to them. And that was financial education to them. And so, yeah, that was little things that I shifted, but I took note and I was like, okay, I'm going to shift that when I become an SMD. So going along, I can't remember exactly. I think it was August. So I got licensed the end of July and right away hit the ground running. I think one of my first clients ended up being a split case. God bless her soul. She was a Lyft rider that I picked up, or maybe an Uber rider I picked up from the airport late at night. We started talking and she's like, oh my God, this is great. We did the presentation. She loved it. Actually, Ken did a lot of it. Sorry. My upline did a lot of it for me. I just blew that one. And it was great because, again, this was the business system. This was how it was structured. I thought, I can be out driving Uber, supporting my life, while my upline is helping me build my business, right? Like that's another way that they get you to commit to this. And it's really, again, a beautiful part of the business system. It really is. I have, again, mostly nothing wrong with that. And so had my first client, started having success again. I think by the end of August, maybe I became an associate. So I went from training associate to associate. I don't remember the exact order, but because I recruited 3 people onto my team. And again, at this point, there could be some debate whether or not that was my upline that did that or it was me or a combination. So we'll say a combination of me and my upline recruiting people onto the team. And so I got my first promotion, was starting to get noticed within the teams, not just my direct team of Team Inspiration, but within Revolution Financial Management. I was going after getting my first certification to teach that first, what we call a kitchen table presentation. Got it really easily. People were really impressed with my presentation skills, with my ability just to flow with people. And again, I just have that background. It's just something I've developed over the years between being in business school and being a coach and presenting and doing education, developing my own education. So it just came naturally to me. And, I just kept following the model. And I was having success and I was like, God, this really works, right? Now I know it works because I had a huge market that I could pull from. I had a huge social networking market that I just kept going back to. And because I had those skill sets, it's not just one or the other. It's because of those 2 things combined. And I had a tenacity about me about like not accepting no. And I don't feel like I was ever not in integrity with that. I just believed in my heart of hearts what I believe to be true, which is this is financial education everybody needs. We don't get in our society. And at least, if nothing else, if you don't do business with me, at least I'm going to leave you more educated than anything else. That was really my attitude. And I just stayed open like this. And I actually did a training for Revolution Financial Management, teaching people about how energetically I kept myself open to have the success I was having. and so, those people, those naysayers of me now saying I didn't have any success, there's no way that I would have been invited to Team Revolution as one of the biggest teams in WFG. I would not have been invited to do training on their full timers on Monday if I hadn't been having success. And so, yeah. So come okay, we're in August, September, I've been promoted. I'm loving this. My upline actually decides to invite me out to it was over Labor Day weekend, I think it was, event that they'd won to go to the home of the couple that are in charge of Revolution Financial Management. And it solidified in me again that this was a real thing. I loved it. It was amazing. The home was gorgeous. And it was just great to meet people in person. Again, I felt like everybody on this team was meant to be my family. I was meant to be theirs. Like I felt home for the first time in a long time. I really did. And I believed in our mission. I believed in our mission to help other people, to help middle America and even low income America educate, to raise their financial awareness and help them protect their families and have financial freedom by the time at least they're in retirement, right? So I fully believed in all that. And again, I think it was August, September, October, November. Yeah, I think it was the beginning of August or somewhere in August that I made a decision very early on, because again, I'm a go-getter, to go after the SMD run. And this is a big thing, right? Like we were going to take August to kind of set ourselves up, prep ourselves up, and then take September, October, November to do the run. And so I was in this. And this is, I think, where I started just to get overwhelmed. By the end of July, the stimulus package for unemployment, that extra $600 was running out. So I knew I either needed to go get a job in order to survive, because it was going to take a while to build this business, or I was going to have to go back to Uber and Lyft in order to give me the flexibility to work this business as much as possible, but then also provide for my life. So I chose the latter, which I still love, right? Like Uber is a great fit for those of us that love driving, love connecting with people. It was also a great way to prospect people and get people in the pipeline for me. And so it was a great fit. But I noticed as the months were going on that I was getting more and more meetings piled on top of me. And I would have less and less time to actually make phone calls, do the stuff that was actually going to drive my business forward. And I was having less and less time to actually provide for myself. And when I asked my upline about this, it was really interesting to me how she would kind of dance around the subject and really never answer it, because she, honestly, in my opinion, never had an answer for me. In my opinion, there was, and this is just my opinion, take it for what it's worth, there was an agenda, because she saw how driven I was and how good I was at doing this, to get me to spend more and more time on the team, because I was becoming an inspiration to other people on her team as well, and to not have me work and provide for myself in order to put everything in. And there's even stories after stories after stories of people that have made it in WFG, not just Team Revolution, but because I was having a lot of success, I would get invited to special luncheons, like lunch and learns with people that had really had a lot of success in other parts of WFG. And there'd always be these stories of like, I decided to go all in and I just gave up everything else I was doing for income. And I just said, if I have to go into debt to make this work, I'm going to do it. And they made it work. And I was like inspired and thinking, can I do that? Well, no, I can't. I have a home, a mortgage. I'm a mom that I have to keep first and foremost, and like me putting myself in financial harm's way. Also, just like, I don't like debt. I don't like consumer debt. It's not that I don't like debt, but I don't like consumer debt that's unfounded, right? Like if I can provide for myself without going into consumer debt, I'm going to do it. And so I'm hearing all of these stories, red flags are starting to really show themselves, but it wasn't until I was doing what I was doing, right? I was going out, prospecting, sharing my missions, sharing the story, sharing this education. I met somebody that was in an entrepreneurial group that I was in, that outside of WFG, which has saved me so much, because it was really a sounding board against what was happening over at WFG. And I met her up for coffee one day, started sharing the presentation with her, and she loved it. She's like, my financial guy has never educated me like this. I want to go with you. It was that easy. So we started doing her financial needs analysis, and I was blown away because this is like the ideal family that you want. And so I took it to Kim, and she's like, go for it. She can't, there we go. My upline trusted me enough. I really have tried not to use the name. So my upline trusted me enough in order to let me loose, right? Which was a huge honor, but also a little scary because again, I was only, so this is like mid-October. So I'd been licensed in July, August, September, October. I'd only been licensed 3 months, had only seen a handful of cases done. At this point, I don't remember ever seeing any case studies done on our team training because our team training, again, really wasn't focused on the actual financial business that we were doing. It was more focused on how do you recruit and how do you build a team. And I only felt stable enough because I had a background in budgeting, finance, business management, and had an eye, had done a lot of education kind of on the basics with Dave Ramsey. I used Crown Financial Ministry coming out of college. Like I knew enough that I felt comfortable to do that, but I didn't know enough to actually put the whole program together. So that's when I started getting on with Nationwide. And that's when things started to really unfold. Actually, a little bit of a backstory is, when I did start more of my deeper training with my upline, we were in the tool that we use to help run what's called these illustrations that shows us, how this product is possibly going to, act for a certain person in their financial future. And so that's when I started to notice that there was this other product called the accumulator within the Nationwide suite of IULs. And when I asked my upline about the accumulator, the answer I got was, I don't really know about it, but I just know that it's always been cheaper to put people in the Protector 2. So that's what we go. And it looks like it has better cash accumulation. And it has this thing called the no lapse guarantee rider so that people won't lapse if they can't make their payments. And that's it. That's all I got. So when I called Nationwide, fast forward again back to October, I called Nationwide, started doing my training, and my training with them uncovered that I asked very specific, well, what's the accumulator for? What's the goal? What's the goal of the Protector 2? And they started to share. And actually, I'm just going to pull this up so I can read this to you. I obviously won't be able to put it on there, but so the Nationwide IUL Accumulator 2 has a goal for the clients of cash accumulation and supplement after retirement. Like this is actually what their product descriptions say for people looking at these products, both the agents and the clients. So the Protector 2 is about wealth protection, transfer, and a lower cost of insurance as they age. The ages that these are good for, so the accumulator is good for people 30 to 55, and the Protector is good for people 45 to 70. So at this point, that's pretty much all of the information I got from Nationwide. There was actually more information they had needed to share with me if they were going to train me fully, but I didn't get that information until December, unfortunately. But right there, I looked at it and I'm like, I just turned 43, and I know that we had talked and my upline had done my financial needs analysis. And I said very specifically, like my kids are going to be taken care of by their dad, thankfully. That's not a concern of mine right now. I need to do something for retirement. And I looked at that and said, the age was off for the product that she put me in, the Protector 2, and the goal was off. I wasn't looking for legacy transfer. I was looking for retirement and cash accumulation, mostly because that's how I'd been educated that this product could work for me. I had no clue that it had this other option there. So remind you, like I'm finding this out as I'm doing training to develop the proposal for my friends that had said yes to working with me. And so I kind of have to put that on the back burner because I need to focus on my friends right now. But I mentioned it to Nationwide. I said, well, actually my upline put me in this product. And right away, the customer reps at Nationwide was like, that sounds like the wrong product for you. Then maybe didn't say it exactly in those words. anyways, long story short, I said, can I change products? And they're like, well, you're still so new in the product, probably, which was actually false information. But because that's the information I got from nationwide customer reps from, basically October through December and early January, I didn't push this as quickly as I could have pushed it if I had known more about what the implications of this were. And I was asking all the right questions. So this is, again, training within the industry. You cannot, and I'll have a video coming out later today about you cannot trust without verifying, but I actually say you need to verify before you trust, because so many people in the industry aren't fully trained or don't know what they're talking about. Insurance products are more complicated, in my opinion, than any other product out there on the market in the finance world. And IULs are the most complicated. There are so many moving parts. I fell in love with that because I could track it all and I could explain it all. And I became actually the expert on my uplines team to do that explanation to people, because I understood it. And it didn't necessarily come easy for me, but I understood it, so I could do that. Anyways, I've got to continue to wrap this up because I've got to get going with my day. But when I discovered that, I went back to my upline and said, hey, did you know this about these two products? And she didn't. She didn't know that was the difference between these two products. And again, this is October, November. This is all she knows about these two products at the time, because that's all I discovered about the products at this time. And so I said, well, I think we need to switch, my friends and I. Like, this is probably not the right product for us to be in. And I said, in the back of my mind, I'm also thinking, she's told me in no uncertain terms that this has been her flagship product that she's always defaulted to for everybody. She doesn't always put everybody in that product. And I don't know her reasonings for putting people in maybe Transamerica versus Nationwide. I think a lot of it is she just looks at a basic illustration with no distributions and looks at age 120, and whatever is like the combination between the lowest premium payment and the best cash accumulation in that policy, that's the one she goes with. And unfortunately, again, that's a training issue. That is not the right way to write policies for your clients. And I quickly discovered that when I just took some time to do my own training. So that was a little bit of a red flag. The other red flags that were starting to show were just the fact that I felt more and more of my time was being consumed by this company without results. More and more time was being asked of me to be on the leadership team. And, when I bring this up to my upline, oh, it's always just a suggestion. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. But it was kind of one of those things, right? Where like, we're saying one thing, but the energy is really doing this. And of course, I want to be successful. I want that for myself. So I'm going to do everything I can to show up. But it was exhausting me. And I was having breakdowns after breakdowns after breakdowns because I was exhausted. And I didn't, again, hindsight's 2020. I didn't see all of the red flags right there in my face about this being control and manipulative tactics in order to get me to do that. So the S started to hit the fan early of this year when I really got to peek behind the veil. So again, based on the early success that I'd had, I got invited to one of their special trainings, which of course everything got adapted for online, that started in like late November maybe or whatever. And it was supposed to be just like 3 or 4 sessions spaced 2 to 3 weeks apart. You had to do all of this homework to prove these different points that there's like, I'm not going to go into that one. That one, looking back on it, was also very shady. Like, I really didn't know what I was doing. It turns out that I would have been in the top 10 of at least a couple hundred people that were invited to be in this thing. But because I didn't meet the deadline at what time the initial points were supposed to be in the way, even though I proved it in many other ways, it didn't meet exactly how I needed to prove the points. And so I didn't get credit for all these points, which I still ended up in like the top 20 of this class. And so people that are saying I didn't have success, it's BS, because I was in these special classes. And it's part of the issue that I was in these special classes. But these special classes were designed to inspire you, to get you like in that circle of influence of other successful people that really allowed you to up your game, right? Because, you are who the 5 closest friends are that's who you are, right? We heard this all the time. And so, of course, I'm going to make this class a priority because I want to succeed. I want to do well by my clients and myself, because I had a big vision of bringing all of this back to movement medicine and developing movement medicine into the community structure that I want to make it into. And so we've gone through our 4 classes. It's, December 7th, I don't know, December 6th or something. Oh, there's one other point of the story. God. And all of a sudden, we're told during this last class that surprise, we're changing the rules on you. We're going to add another class, one more class. So those that graduate within the top 20% get to go on to this one other class. Those of you that didn't work hard enough, sorry, bye-bye. We're going to kick you out. And it was literally said like that. And I was just like, that was a huge red flag to me. I'm like, how can they change the rules on everybody? Like, again, I almost ended up in the top 10. In the top 10, we're supposed to get some special trip out to California to meet with the elite people and be in that whole circuit. And it just felt like kind of colluding that because I was new and I would have bumped out some of the more well-known names that I wasn't allowed in. Okay, whatever, right? Like, I know for me, well, I did. I don't need that stuff. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to put my head down. Like, the recognition in the end wasn't that important to me as much as just knowing that I had done what I needed to do. So that was a huge red flag. The other huge red flag is December 17th. We have a lot of weekly trainings that happen, especially on the team I was on, because we were now going from East Coast to West Coast with time zones. And so we were trying to make special trainings for each of those to hit those different time zones. I'm in the leadership, so I am expected to show up to a lot of those, even though, again, you don't have to, but we're going to kind of hold it over you if you don't. And it's never said directly. It's all that hidden energy. So, they're going to fight me on that one, I'm sure. And hold on, okay. So I asked to do this training on the difference between these 2 products I just gave you, right? The Nationwide IUL Protector versus the Accumulator by my upline. I was invited. And so I remember calling that morning because I was like, you know what? I want to put this side-by-side comparison together, which is what I did. Is there a way for me to share? No. Okay. I can't do that. I was going to say, if I could share my screen, that would be awesome. But so I started working, and it took me all of 10 minutes, y'all. And this was the most alarming fact. So again, I've talked to Nationwide several times by this point, and it's alarming to me that they just are now sharing this part of the difference between the products. So the uniqueness to each of these policies is, one, the accumulator. So remember, the accumulator is for cash accumulation. That's so easy to remember. It's for ages 30 to 55. And in year 16 of the policy, a 0.2% annualized bonus to the cash value will be added on a monthly basis if the accumulation test is passed by the start of policy. So, I'm not going to get into specifics, but basically just know that you're going to get benefited in that accumulator product because it's for cash accumulation, 0.2%. That's not a whole lot to write a home about. We got that. But it's meant for cash accumulation. The goals are for cash accumulation and supplement to retirement. The IUL Protector, on the other hand, again, it's for wealth protection and transfer and a lower cost of insurance as they age. It is for ages 45 to 70, so later in life. And the big thing about the Protector is that in year 21 of the policy, if certain benefit or if certain requirements are met in the cash accumulation, which basically means you don't take cash accumulation out or you do very minimal and then you put it right back in, there will be a 25% cost of reduction added or given to the product, meaning that if you meet these cash accumulation over here in this area, you're going to see a reduction in cost of insurance, which is going to make the cash value go higher, faster, because you're not using your cash accumulation. It couldn't be any clearer. So it took me all of 10 minutes to get that training from Nationwide when I really sat down and asked the right specific questions, which is a little alarming again to me that I had to do that. So then I had to take that training to the team inspiration. I got some challenge and people saying, well, it's still cheaper. And I'm like, not if you're running illustrations properly. And the way to run the illustrations properly is to actually use it how clients are going to use it, because that's how we're educating them to use it, which is to take distributions, most likely starting at 65, to actually finish the policy by 65. So they're not having to pay the same amount back into it when they're taking distributions, because what's the point of that? But then to actually illustrate it with distribution so that you can see what's happening to the cash value going forward. If that had been done, my upline and everybody else on the team would have seen that the Protector 2 was not the right policy for what we were selling the goals for people. At the end of that training, I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, everybody else had left and I had my upline on the conversation. I said, and she looked at me and she's like, well, it was cheaper and it had a better cash. I'm like, it doesn't matter, so-and-so. It's not the right product for our goals, and it's not going to actually work that way. It's not going to be cheaper in the long run because we're not going to use it that way. It's actually going to cost us more money. And so that was a huge red flag. I asked her again. I mean, this was like the third or fourth time I'd asked her verbally, please help myself and my friends that you put in this product to get out of the product and into the accumulator. Do that little step. And I was ignored. The holidays were upon us and I kind of wrote it off as like, well, we're all busy, yada, yada, yada. Okay. I get it. And I'm also putting my head down a little bit because I'm getting concerned that I'm not going to be able to change products and that I've just lost, I don't know, $800-900 to this product. And that I sold my friends into this product, not knowing what it was myself, and got the wool pulled over our eyes. And so I had a little bit of my head down. Also, I didn't know the urgency because up until that point, I had been told by Nationwide that we would most likely be able to change. So all of these pieces are together. Fast forward to the early start of 2021, and the rest of the red flags just start coming out so fast. It was like the first Saturday of 2021, and I was looking at my schedule. And mind you, I drive typically Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday as much as I can after meetings, and all day Sunday and sometimes Monday. Driving is exhausting. It's also very extroverted because I have to, I'm being social with people. And at the same time, I'm trying to manage being at all these team meetings. So I'm looking at, a lot of times I don't have the energy to drive as much as I need to afford my life because I'm trying to balance all these trainings that I need to be at, that I need to be at, right? They're like, oh, they're always optional, but you really, again, it's one of these. And so it comes to be Saturday morning. I'm exhausted after being out till 1 or 2 a.m. and having to get up for, I think it was a 10 a.m. meeting, which doesn't sound bad, but when you're out till 1 or 2 a.m. and it's just consistently a couple nights in a row, for me, it just wasn't enough sleep. And then I was looking at the rest of the schedule and I was going to have like 5 hours of meetings because of that special training that I'd been in. And then there was another special training that we had one as well that I was going to be in after that. So it was like, I'm looking at like 4 to 6 hours of meetings today. I'm going to not go to this first meeting because I need to take care of myself, and everybody on my team is going to be on the same board because we're all so much about taking care of ourselves, self first, because if you don't have yourself first, you're not going to be able to do it. And so I texted my mentor and my upline and I said, I'm going to miss the BPM. That's what we called that early Saturday morning. We had 2 BPMs a week in order to take care of myself so I can make the rest of the meetings today that I want to be at. And my team is okay with it. And she said, text me back. And she's like, I hear you and you really need to reconsider. We said several times this week, and not just her, but other people that we'd heard from that week, you never miss a BPM meeting. You never miss a BPM meeting. And so I was like, well, that's great. That's not me. This is my own business and I'm going to miss it. So then I get a phone call. We've been going back and forth now for most of the hour that's before the meeting that I wanted to take outside to go for a walk because I'm in a car or I'm sitting inside all the time. I get a phone call and she's like, I need to know that you're going to be on the meeting. And I said, I'm no, like I need to take care of myself so that I can go to these meetings later on. I also had a big client meeting that I was working on, I needed to prepare for. And I was told that those meetings later on in the afternoon were for me and for my development, that I could skip those, but that because I had a team, I needed to be at these meetings in the morning, that it wasn't about me, it was about them. And I needed to show up to be a good example to them, to make sure that people understood that this is what you do when you have a team. And I think there was a lot more behind it. I was what they called the rabbit on the team because I was doing so well so early on. I was driven. I was an example. I was made to be an example. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that pressure. I wanted to do my own thing. And so I was told to be on. And because I wanted to believe in this, I allowed myself to be on. I was very disgruntled the whole entire time, didn't get into the meeting. I had very negative energy. I was also told in that conversation before, which blew my mind, that pre-COVID, people could be on their deathbeds and they would still go to the BAPM. Like that was the standard that was held up within this company. And I don't know if that's all WFG. I have a suspicion it is, but within Team Revolution, that is what it is. And I knew also, again, not only was I the rabbit for Team Inspiration, because this was just a little Team Inspiration one, but I had 6 people or 5 people showing up consistently with me because we loved each other and we were going to support each other. And so if I didn't show up, there was a chance that they weren't going to show up. I mean, that was her fear, right? That I would be example of like, oh, you don't have to show up for your business. That's how they say it. But no, it's really more that if I didn't show up, my friends would see it as an excuse not to show up to something that they really weren't getting a lot out of anyways, because most of the training was about recruiting and it wasn't actually about the business. So that was a huge, huge, huge red flag to me. And I took some space back that week. And I started talking to each of my downlines. They were my friends. And I was looking at like what was going on. I was the only one having success and having success early on. Those first couple of people that were coming on, we'd had many conversations because you're encouraged as a team leader to have constant communication with them, CPC, constant personal communication. And, I was always like taking the balance of what they were saying and, trying to coach them to do something different or, buying into what my upline was saying is that they're not doing the work, which is kind of BS, now that I look back at it. So again, a huge apology to my friends for that. I think they were doing the work, but conversation after conversation I had with my friends that week was, we believe in this. We believe in financial education. We want to be part of this, but we don't even know what we're doing. We don't get enough education around the financial industry, how to put a good, solid financial package together, what that even means, what the products mean, yada, yada, yada. And so I listened to them. And I started to develop a little plan for myself. And I said, okay, if my upline isn't going to bring in more meeting during those already scheduled meetings so that we're not taking more of people's time, I'm going to develop a little like online course or something. I'm going to put it together myself. And, when I was talking to some other sidelines on the team, the encouragement was that I still needed to get that verified by my upline and by her upline, the Team Revolution. I thought, oh, okay. And I pretty much knew how that was going to go. I pretty much knew I was going to get shut down. And that's to start wrapping this up. That's pretty much what happened is I got shut down to put together on my own a training schedule of certain classes people would have to pass in order to even start writing like business or whatever, like to start going out on those first presentations by themselves. They would have to pass some certification of training in order to be verifiable good at their job of providing financial education and strategies to people, not just being able to reproduce or to regurgitate these little 2 presentations, but actually understand the dynamics behind why we're sharing what we're sharing in those presentations, which just seemed like common sense to me. And so when I approached my upline, I started the conversation with like, why do you believe in me? And she's like, well, I still believe you could be the first SMD. Now, there's other people on the team that are higher ranked than me, that are much closer to SMD than me, and have been on the team for 6-7 years, and then somewhere in between 6 and 7 years and 3 or 4 months. And she's thinking that I can be her first SMD. So that is a huge red flag to me. Like there's something else going on that I'm not seeing. And then, I asked her straight out, I said, if you disagreed with so-and-so who was her upline, the head of Team Revolution, what would you do? And she's like, well, I'd follow them. And I said right away, I don't agree with you. If I feel strongly about something, I'm going to follow my own intuition. And I said, I've been talking to my teammates, wondering why they're not producing, what's going on, what I can do to help them. And it consistently, 6 people came back saying, we need more education. We don't understand what we're doing. And we don't like the approach of how people are being approached. And I said, I'd like to develop something and do it on my own if you're not going to give us the red light. And she's like, well, I can take it to so-and-so, the head of Team Revolution, but I can tell you what she's going to do. And I said, before you take it to her, please give me the benefit of the doubt. Let me put this proposal together and I will get it over to you before, right? And I thought, surely she's going to do that because we were stepping into this big, like what they call wealth bowl. It was called something else because it was online. So I thought there's not going to be enough time for her to take this to her upline and talk about it. So I have my phone off. Next 2 hours, I'm working on this proposal to get it over to my upline. I go check my phone and I've gotten a phone call and a text message from her upline, the head of Team Revolution, saying, please call me. And so I call and I get right away. And again, people aren't going to notice this unless you've been trained to notice what tactics are meant to help you dissuade yourself on your reality and who you are in order to convince you to trust somebody else outside of your reality. And so right away, the conversation started with, and remind you, my upline said, well, we'll deal with this next week. It's the big convention. I won't take it to her until you get me the proposal. Well, she dishonored me with that. She went straight away to her upline. Her upline's calling me. Well, your upline is really concerned about you. She's really worried about you. That is a control tactic, you all. That is meant to get you to question your reality and be like, well, why? Why are you concerned about me? So then that's the hope that they'll ask that question. So then it'll, spin ball into like giving you all their doubts about what you're doing so that you start questioning your reality. And I didn't fall into it because I knew. I was like, nope, there's no reason to be concerned about me. And unfortunately, I wish I could have had that conversation recorded. I didn't, but it took an hour and a half. I was online with this woman and it was exhausting. Little by little, she was draining my energy. And this is, again, another control tactic. The big takeaways was she was not encouraging me. She was telling me that I couldn't trust my downline. At first, she's like, your downline are broke. And she did not energetically mean broke as in money, but she meant broke people. And I challenged her on that. And then she came back around. It was a Freudian slip. I know it was. And my alarm bells went off because this was a different side of this woman that I'd ever seen. And it was disheartening. And I thought, this is it. Like, this is not a company I want to be associated with. And I really got to wrap this up. This could be so long. But over the next hour and a half, I got talked at as an example as to what I needed to be doing to my downline. And she did it with this approach of like, I am helping you. I am saving you from a life of destitution, a life of failure, a life of not having success, a life of being broken for yourself. She gave me example after example of how she'd used this approach with other people that are now, multimillionaires or not multi, but, $450, $500, $800,000 earners. And God, thank heavens, they listened to her. Like, she is the goddess. She is the God. She's the savior. She's the Christ. And, she just kept talking at me, trying to get me to believe that that's exactly what I needed to have done to me in order to acquiesce to her wishes and what I needed to be doing to my downline, that I shouldn't have been listening to them and their needs for more training on something that is basic. We are in the financial industry. We should be getting trained on the financial industry. And it blew my mind. I'm like, how can you justify talking at me and telling me that my people are wrong when I feel the same way? And it was because it was a control tactic. Another control tactic that was used in that conversation was, well, you can be just a little like, what did she call it? a little kind of mom and pop, have a couple different legs of your agency together. But why, like, basically, why would you want to do that when you could have all this? When you could be this big, have this big of a vision, be this grandiose, be, in charge of this much. Why would you just want like a little minuscule shop? That was the energy behind it. Like, you could do that. You could be subpar. You could be, just mediocre or average. But why would you? Why would you want to be average? So there was a lot of hidden intention behind what she was saying, in the sense of like, if you don't acquiesce to what we want for you, which is a big dream, you're not dreaming big enough, was something I heard constantly, even on my vision board. It was like, I printed a big dream. And that was actually earlier that week, I started to pull all of that off, because I was like, is that really me? Or is that their energy putting on me? Are they putting that energy on me? It's them putting their energy on me. I didn't want this huge, big agency, because I knew by that time, if I did that, that I would never be able to bring forth everything I want to bring forth with movement medicine, because then you're in charge of this huge, big agency and you can't step away from it. You've got to mama it the entire time, or else it starts to fall apart. And if you're not constantly recruiting people, because there's such a high turnover, it falls apart. And so I started to like take the scales off. I'm like, this is not my energy. I don't want this big thing that you want for me, and you're not going to put this on me. Finally got her off the phone. There was many other things she tried to convince me that convention is great, or Wealth Bowl is great. Everybody loves it. Everybody needs it. And I'm like, I don't do well in those big, like rah events. I teach energy ethics. I don't believe it's ethical to get people all riled up at these big events. I mean, it's kind of like going to these big saving events in the Christian world that I used to go to, or Burning Man. Like, you get all riled up at these big events, but then you can't maintain it. So then you have to have another event, a month and a half later, so that you can get pumped up again, but you can't maintain it. So then you have to have a monthly event so you can get riled up, and then you can't do that. So you have to do it every week. Like, that's exhausting and so not in integrity with me. And so here's somebody that's saying she knows better than I do about who I am. And she's known me for maybe 4 months. And she hasn't even spent any time with me, except we went out to dinner once when she was here. Didn't ask me really any personal questions. Didn't really get to know me. Doesn't know anything about my history and who I am. And she's telling me that she knows better than I do about what I need for myself and my business. BS, y'all. No. So I finally get off the phone, and my energy was sunk. 5 minutes later, my energy came back. I knew it was spiritual warfare at that point. It was vampirish energy. And I was like, what's going on? So yeah, this isn't going to be so short, but maybe I'll just wrap it up there and do the second part, because this is really long, y'all. My voice needs a break. I need to go eat my breakfast and read a text message that just came in. So let's end it there, and I will come back and share part 2 later. So much love. Bye-bye.